Guys, I mean, I know the base isn't much to look at, but it's kind of rude to stare like that. Guys? 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 Hello there, and welcome back to AlphaCraft. My, how time has flown. I looked at the calendar and saw how long it had been since I put out a video and said to myself, Self, put down that work and get some fun stuff done. And so I did. And here we are. So let's get right to it. So, I know I do everything backwards. I mean, everyone focuses on building their main bases and then move on to other things, and me, I never really cared a lot about what the main base structure looked like. Like I always say, it's just where I put my items. Instead, I focus on what's in my head. What I mean by that is, there's a lot of things I want to do this season, but there's one thing that pops into my head over and over and over, and whatever that thing is what I'm going to focus on. Right now, what's been in my head is the bridge connecting my island to the mainland. So even though all my chests are sitting out in the rain, this is what has my attention. So this season, I've set myself a goal to build in a style that I don't normally build in. Use block palettes I don't normally use. It's very easy to fall into ruts in Minecraft. Like, I designed a scalable kelp farm years ago, but I always seem to end up manually breaking the kelp during a season since it's not a very redstone-friendly design in the early game, and so it's just easier to just keep breaking it. The same idea applies to my build style. I feel like for the last few years I have a tendency to work with the terrain a lot and to build my structures inside of the landscape versus changing the landscape to fit my builds. Last year, nearly everything was built into the side of the hill. Before that, I had a base built entirely inside a cave. Before that, I had one built entirely inside a mountain. Another time, there was a small building above ground, but everything else was built below it. There was one year I rebuilt an entire village, but as much as I liked what I did, every building was literally a different block palette, kind of making the entire village a sort of eclectic build style. This time I want to pick a general theme for what I'm doing and try to make sure all the block palettes work well with each other. Now, it should be said, the original plan was to build large towers at either end of this bridge that would house my storage area. There'd be copper golems acting as tower guards, a portcullis, all the good tower stuff. The problem is, every time I built a tower for the bridge in creative, I hated it. Couldn't pull any rabbits out of the hat. They just didn't work. The problem was the size of the towers overwhelmed the bridge itself and made the bridge look bad. It made it look small. And I liked the bridge design I came up with, so I needed to find towers I liked that went well with the bridge. Eventually, I settled on more of a pillar-style tower. One thing I wanted for sure was to use a block palette for the bridge and towers, and for the pathways, that all work together in the final base design. The mansion at the top of the hill will be a bright, mostly white block palette. The bridge is a gray and white palette, and the paths will be a dark gray to black palette. That way, the paths will contrast nicely with everything later on, when I finally build things to contrast with the path. And this is where the inevitable breakdown in recording happens. Between finishing up all the detail work on the towers and then duplicating that on the other end of the bridge, well, I simply didn't record any of it. Sometimes you just get so caught up in what you're doing that you forget to hit record. But what we can do is take a little look around. So let's start with the bridge design itself. I wanted to do something that you don't see every day, and I thought if I moved the arch supports up to the middle of the bridge instead of below it as you would normally see them, that it would make it a more interesting shape. I used alternating glass panes and iron bars along with copper bars to try and give the illusion of cable supports running between the arches. The edges of the glass panes actually add to the effect while also leaving the empty space needed for the impression of cables. The walkway itself uses a mix of polished tuff and deep slate with some chiseled tuff and blast furnaces for variation down the center of the bridge. It's not the most complicated pattern, but I think it works. Now, as I said earlier, the towers on either end were giving me fits trying to find something that worked well with the bridge design without overshadowing it. Once I abandoned the idea of functional towers, it made things a lot easier. I went with a bit of a gradient on the tower, as I think that they're large enough to justify one. I used a mixture of glass panes and bars to lean into the idea that some corrosion has formed and drained downwards, staining the blocks on the bottom. The north pillar houses the nether portal to the roof, since I already have a portal to the nether hub underground at the kelp farm on the north end of the island. I tried to make the cross sections of the pillars give a sort of portcullis-y feel without actually being anything like one. It just has a nice look to it, I think. The south pillar is the same basic design without the portal, of course, which connects to the road that will eventually connect back to spawn. Here I went with all polished blocks and some smooth stone, and really leaned into the gradient for the whole path. Just so it said, the path isn't done. It needs some love and attention to the borders of the path and lighting other than some lanterns tossed on the ground. But I haven't got that far yet. The path is 400 blocks long just to go from this river to the next river. On top of that, there was a whole lot of landscaping needed to have a path that could be built with slabs the whole way, since, for some silly reason, there's still no such thing as smooth stone stairs. Here, I need to come up with some way to transition from the bridge walkway pattern to the island road palette, but that kind of brings me to the next problem, which is over here on the north end of the bridge. I'm not sure what to do with this at the moment. The idea was there would be a tower here that you entered and staircased your way down to the bridge, but without it, I don't know what to do with this just yet. Part of the problem is that for reasons of symmetry, whatever I do on the south end to connect the two pathway designs together probably has to happen up here, which leads to the inevitable solution looming up in front of me. Even more landscaping. But before I get to that, let's take a mini tour of my almost base to show what's been done. I mean, it's not like all my time is spent mining and fishing. Over here you can see I gave my judgy little villagers a mighty fine dirt hut to live in. That'll show 'em not to be so judgmental. And over here on the right is a mini bamboo, melon, pumpkin, sugarcane farm. And this kind of demonstrates what I've always said. Farms don't need to be supermassive mega things to get you what you need. I mean, I'm always at my base, so these things are always running. These tiny little farms give me all I need for rockets, extra wood to make all the chests I could ever need, and pumpkins and melons for villager trading, or, as I'm using them right now, for bone meal production. At some point, this will be housed inside the basement of the east wing of the mansion, probably with villagers living upstairs, you know, once they've been released from their time out. And over here, this exquisitely decorated hole in the ground leads to the underground portal and the kelp farm. I just went with something basic down here, and I thought the kelp blocks made a nice little tile pattern in the floor. It's nice to actually use them for something other than furnace fuel. And over here we find yet another well-decorated hole in the ground that leads to my copper aging room. One lesson I learned from building the bridge, you really need to pre-age those copper bars. They take forever to age naturally. So here I'm focusing on trapdoors and bars for future builds. And below this is a massive hole down to bedrock. Not sure what I'll build in here yet. Probably a mob farm or a cactus farm or something. What can I say? I find mining a distressor, and if you're going to mine, sometimes you might as well put it to good use, like making a great big hole under your base. But as much as it pains me, that work I set down as calling and needs to be picked back up again. I know it was a shorter video this time, but hopefully you enjoyed it. Until next time, I have been Gragore, and this has been AlphaCraft. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, always try and find a way to have some fun. See ya.